This is my story. This is not a review or a criticism or an analysis of it. This is just what happened to me. That's why I've said in the title that this is an uneducated understanding of it. Because I don't want you to go in expecting any answers. If anything, you're going to find questions. A lot of questions. But let's start at the beginning. No? We're not? Oh, okay. Let's start today. Today is Tuesday, the 19th of March, 2024. It is now that I've started working on this video. It is now that I'm recording. My last video was on the Sunday, 17th of March. Now I watched this movie on the 10th of March. So basically there was this whole week's gap where I was so busy working on this video that I didn't quite get to sync this video in. I did find an article, which was something that I knew that I wanted to look into before I started working on this video. So once I finished this video, which I finished on Saturday, I started to think on Sunday about what this video is going to be like. Now Monday, I thought about it, but I didn't do much. Now Tuesday, when I've started recording, this is where shit gets real. Because this article that I was talking about earlier, this is what it's going to all come back to. Because you see, after the grind that I did for the last video, I was quite tired. I did not really feel like going into this next video being very big and tiring to make, and I just wanted a break. So then I started reading the article. Turns out, this article would lead to a lot more questions rather than me finding any answers. Because there is so much to unpack here, with so many sides having so many opinions, and there were so many people who are academics, and me personally, I'm a stupid baby. I don't know anything about any of this, so I don't even know who's right and who's wrong. And I have no idea how to feel or how to think about any of these things, and I've read so many articles, I've read so many Reddit threads, I've read so much trying to understand things. I spent about 10 hours reading yesterday, which is more than what an average giraffe reads in a month. And I'm tired. Because there are no answers. It's just an endless chasm of despair and suffering with no end in sight as I scream and gasp for air, suffocating with the voices that tell me to listen, to understand, yet my brain refuses to think as it has within. It has not the energy to go on, yet I must presume. Maybe I should actually start at the beginning.
Free thinkers at 17.
Funny, I never pegged you as a cynic.
Not a cynic. A realist.
That was the scene where I wrote my very first note on this movie in my book, and I think that was the moment where I realized that this movie is probably going to stick with me more than I initially thought it was going to. But it was this next scene that I think really just cemented this movie in my brain.
Just when you think you know something, you have to look at it in another way. Even though it may seem silly or wrong, you must try. Now, when you read, don't just consider what the author thinks. Consider what you think.
After this clip, I just had to pause and I had to walk around my house just thinking about what I want to talk about and how this video is going to be made. Because at this point in time, I knew that this is a movie that I want to make a video on. I thought this movie was amazing. I thought from the visuals of this movie to the way they try to express things, to the direction, and I don't know, overall this was such a vibey movie. It was such a comfy movie to watch. But I also really liked the character that Robin Williams played, and you know, what this movie gives away for you in this movie. I think there was a lot that I took away from this movie, and I don't think I can quite sum up my thoughts of it in this section. Right as I finished watching it, I made a recording of it, and that is a separate video that I have. And that video's link is probably going to be in the description somewhere. That sums up how I feel about this movie way better than if I try to explain it now. You know how I said I started this video on Tuesday? Today is Thursday, not the same Thursday, the next Thursday. This video has been a pain in the ass to make, and I'm so not sure how it's gonna get finished by the next 2 days, but I'll try my best. This section was especially hard to make because I'm not quite sure how to express the roller coaster that I went through to get here, because I started reading articles without making notes. When I started making notes, it was a bit too late. Funnily enough, the note actually starts with, I'm so tired, I don't want to do any of this anymore. And then it goes on for like 3-4 pages more because I just couldn't stop. And it's been such a roller coaster wreck of events. But here we are. I'm gonna drop that whole note into a pastebin or something if you want to go read it. But I'm gonna condense all the arguments down so it's not going to be as funny to watch, but I can't think of a way to present this within the time frame that I have, because I have exams coming up. I'm busy. I don't have time for this shit. Let's go. I think the main argument is the one that the article actually starts off with, is that this is not a good movie to talk about humanities as a study. And I think the point is that it undermines what humanities is, right? Because humanities is about understanding the art by analyzing it and to, look further into it. Keating is fundamentally against this. What he wants to say is that you're not supposed to analyze art, you're supposed to feel it, to make your own meaning out of the art. He literally says this right at the beginning, right? To him, it's not about what the artist meant, but rather what you think when you consume the art, which to a lot of people is not the correct way to do things. Because art is usually used as a medium to say things, and these things can actually be things like life lessons, but it can also be dangerous propaganda for politicians and for things that can actually cause some severe harm if you're not aware about how to read these things. There was this other video that I found which talks about this point specifically, and I do think there is some very real value to understanding that you can't take art at face value. You do have to understand that there might be some hidden messages, and you might need to be aware of these things, otherwise you're going to end up doing some really stupid stuff down the line. This argument, though, is something that spans way beyond the scope of just this movie, because this argument of whether art should be criticized and analyzed and understood, or whether it's something you just feel, you just appreciate, that's an argument that I have found many people talk about it online, and I think there's no definitive answer to this, and I think it comes down to personal preference. The other issue that people always talk about is the fact that Keating replaces the dogma of the institutions with his own dogma, in the sense that the students are no longer following the institution blindly, which is great. Good job, Keating. However, now they're following him blindly. Like, let's say at the beginning of the movie, when he asked the students to tear off those pages, that was when people went, okay, that's not good, you're not supposed to do that. Most people were kind of reluctant to do it, especially that one kid, the asshole, I don't remember his name. That kid was really reluctant to do it, but then he got peer pressured into it. So it feels like this is kind of dogma, in the sense that they're just blindly telling them what the teacher told them to do. And that is actually a very good argument, because I feel like that makes you think, was Keating's method right in teaching people about things? It's a very interesting argument, and I think it is really hard to sort of break that down and understand that. The next one was the suicide being Keating's fault. A lot of people think that Keating led the kids astray, in the sense that he filled them with these dreams about how the world is and how you should follow your dreams and all those things. And had Keating not done this and inspired the kids to follow their passion, things would probably have been better for them, because then they would have just focused on their studies and gone on to do much greater things in life. And that sort of leads to this idea that carpe diem is actually kind of a dangerous line of thinking. Because the point is that carpe diem is a little bit stupid, right? You can't actually just forget about everything and follow your dreams and do just what comes to your heart. Because you do need to show some level of restraint, and you can't fully commit to doing everything that you know you're going to regret later, right? You do have to have some amount of reservation in life. And I think this is something that I need to talk about right now, because this is something that was intended by the writer. I think he talked about it multiple times, where he said that it is true that whatever Keating is doing is not completely accurate. And this is shown in the movie as well, in two specific spots. One, obviously, during the suicide, but other when they go to get women into the all-boys school. That was also an important part of it. And to express this problem, I don't have the time to go through articles and interviews and figure this out for myself. So the next session is a bit iffy, because I personally hate artificial intelligence. I think generative AI is stupid and all those things, but I didn't have the option to look into these things myself, and I'm doing this just as an exploratory thing, right? So don't take this seriously, and if you're interested in this, you can just go look it up yourself or something, and if you find something, sure, let me know in the comments, because I'm genuinely interested in this. But from what I could find, at least, is that the director initially seemed to have praised the main character, and I think Peter Weir, whatever his surname is, I'm so sorry, I'm so tired right now, I don't have the time to look that up. I know it's a very annoying thing when YouTubers do that thing where they're like, I don't know how to pronounce that, but I'm so tired, I'm sorry. He sort of went into it, and I think initially he thought of Keating as a hero, as this greater than life figure who has done nothing wrong and he understands everything about life. But I think the writer did not think this way. I think the writer actually understood that there was some gray, in him, that it wasn't completely black and white. And this was, I think, something that the director did not understand while he was making the movie, which is why he portrayed the character in such a positive light, which is why I think the movie got the reputation that it has right now. And I think it was only after a lot of interviews and hearing these criticisms that he realized that maybe Keating is not perfect. He does talk about this in his later interviews, but I have a conspiracy theory here that maybe initially he wasn't on this line of thought. And again, everything that I could find on this is through AI, and I don't trust AI. And I'm very sorry for using it here, but if you're interested in this, you can go through some interviews and give some insights. Please feel free to. And these issues, I think, are what leads me to my next point, which is something minor that I do need to talk about. As you can imagine, the original script of the movie was changed quite a bit for the final version of the movie, and two of these changes are very much interesting to me, because Peter Weir sort of made some changes to these movies, and these two changes are specifically what I think highlight the issue that I talked about earlier, where I don't think he understood the character of Keating and how great the character was. For one, Keating was supposed to have cancer and was supposed to be dying throughout the movie, and I think this would fix the issue of Carpe Diem seeming like a very overwhelming thing. What I think the director thought, if the character was dying, then him saying Carpe Diem makes sense because his life is about to end and it would reduce the overall message of it. That's what the director thought. And in my opinion, that would actually have been a good point. For someone like him, Carpe Diem would be perfect. But now Keating looks like this person that has no responsibilities and just goes about doing stupid stuff, right? That just becomes a problem with his character, which is unfortunate, because then it makes sense why he's written this way. But now you take away that little bit of context about him having cancer, and I think that makes him seem like a child who doesn't care about tomorrow. A healthy person living this kind of life just seems careless and incorrect, which ends up hurting the movie, and I think I understand why this happens. The other issue is that the dad was supposed to drag away the student from the theater. I think this would fix the issue of the suicide seeming a little bit sudden and overdone, because the amount of shame and trauma that would have been caused by being dragged away from the theater surely would have been a very strong motivator for this. But I think I need to talk about all of those issues that I mentioned earlier. Okay, initially in this section I was supposed to do a second watch of the movie, but again I don't have the time to do that because I have exams coming up and I'm a college student. I don't have the fucking time to do that, which unfortunately makes this video come up a bit lackluster in that sense. But again, this is an uneducated take on it. I think later down the line, when I'm smarter, I will remake this video with more insights into understanding literature and all those things. For now, I'm just going to go through my thoughts and reflections on this movie. I think this is a very simple movie. It was a Hollywood movie that was directed at, the average Hollywood moviegoer. It wasn't supposed to be the highest form of art or anything of the sort. And I think the problem is that this is directed at literature. Let's say you talk about, I don't know, programming or hacking in movies. If you made a movie like that, you just know it's going to be filled with bullshit. But no programmer or hacker is going to get too pissed off about it because they just know that Hollywood isn't going to take their art too seriously. But then when you think about literature, this is filled with nerds who are supposed to look at things like movies and analyze them. And when you give them something like that, I think it becomes hard for them to like it. So yes, this movie is not good for literature majors, unfortunately. That's just how it is. I think this is supposed to be more of a general view for the general audience, not for literature nerds, which I'm not saying is a good or bad thing. I don't think the movie shouldn't have tried to be deeper than it is, but that's just how it is, unfortunately. And I also think a lot of the exaggeration that comes here is part of the fiction. Because I think when people see things like these, they're obviously going to get inspired, but they're not going to go all the way there, right? No one is going to watch this movie and carpe diem their way into severe depth or anything. That's not going to happen. People are only somewhat taking this seriously. They're going to take maybe a fraction of whatever the movie gives them. And I think that's kind of normal when it comes to movies and stuff. You really do have to exaggerate these things to send a message home. It's like theater, it's like drama, right? It just builds up the atmosphere or something like that. And I think that's fine. I mean, I personally think it's fine. I don't know, some people disagree, a lot of people disagree, but I personally think that's fine. Most people will probably learn their own lessons anyway. They will slowly incorporate these ideas into their life, and if something goes wrong, they can pull back. I don't think this is like gonna ruin someone's life if they watch this movie. I think one of the main things I really disliked about this movie is the suicide of the actor kid. There was this comment that I saw on that video where the person says that it would have been better if instead that one plot line, the romantic one, was the one that was standing as a message of why carpe diem is bad, because I think that would have been amazing. I mean, imagine this. This kid, he's trying so hard to go after this girl who clearly doesn't want him. And I think this could have turned into a genuine issue for him, and it would have gotten him into trouble and got him punished. I think that would have sent home the message a lot better, because it also would have been good to teach, boys that you shouldn't go after girls that way, and that's toxic and all those things. And I think the suicide, I think it just feels like, oh, there's a kid that was trying so hard to achieve his dreams, but society sucks, you're not going to achieve your dreams. It's a weird message to give away. However, I don't think the suicide was not understandable, because I think when you're a teenager, your brain is just working in weird ways, and it's not a very rational thing to do. But I don't think most people who are considering suicide are in a rational state of mind. And I do think that is important to consider. And I'm not particularly sad it did that. However, I do think they could have used the romance story instead. I feel like that would have fixed two problems with just one change. The movie focuses on a very specific issue, and it is not dealing with all the caveats that come with it and the nuances that are involved in this issue, which I think is kind of difficult for a movie of this runtime to do. But I also sympathize with people who think this movie should have done more, because that definitely would have been really good. And I also think it just comes down to the fact that this is a bigger debate. Because when I was going through a lot of those articles and a lot of those comments on Reddits and stuff that I talked about, I did realize something. A lot of these points about how this movie's anti-establishment message is bad come from people who have questionable political standpoints, to say the least. Some of them are just extremely right-wing leaning people, which again, I mean, I don't want to drag politics into this, but I think when you're talking about arts, when you're talking about humanities, you do have to face that politics is an important part of humanity. That is unfortunately just how it is. But that's why it was more interesting to me when I found that the original article was actually written by someone who seems to be fairly left-leaning. In fact, I think they're probably even not transphobic, which is kind of rare to see in these sort of spaces to me. But I think for that reason, I think it was very much interesting to me when I viewed that article in that light, that this is not just someone who is conservative and wants things to stay the same way and wants people to be under the clutches of capitalism and the evil state of society. That's not how it is. He's generally just a good guy who has some good views, and that made me take the article a bit differently. It made me realize that this is not an attack at me. This is a genuine call to people to make them realize how much literature matters. I think the whole argument of whether you should be focusing on enjoying art or analyzing it is something we do need to talk about. I think art is something that should be enjoyed, but you also do need to understand that art can definitely be a machine for propaganda. I don't think this movie is a machine for propaganda, but I know there is a lot of stuff out there that is. Because as Garfield said, you are not immune to propaganda. You need to have some amount of critical thinking skills, and you need to have some form of media literacy. Not to say that I have that, I'm quite stupid. This is actually one of the very rare few times that I've been analyzing something. My last video was on Kamen Rider, and I think I spent about 20 seconds total analyzing the subtext of the movie. I am not a critical thinking person, which is why I think it was fitting that this was the movie where I decided to try and think. Because I think the point of this channel for me was that I don't analyze things, I don't write essays. What I do is I just give my thoughts and how I felt, and it's supposed to be a diary. But I think this movie calls me to think, and if I didn't think on it, I think I would be defeating the purpose of this movie. Wow, I'm kind of surprised because this is all in one single recording, right? Like, remember when I said I'm recording this on a Thursday? This is the same clip. This is the same session of recording. I just ended up recording just about the entire video right here. That's amazing. But my throat hurts quite a lot. That's gonna be enough for today, I think. When I watched this movie, and indeed for a very long time after I watched this movie, I did not know about Robin Williams or anything about him. So when I was going through the movie and I was going through all these articles, that's when I found out that he died. And then I found out how he died, and it only left me feeling more and more confused. Because from the movie, it seemed like he was a really fun guy. I mean, that's what everyone in interviews said, and that's how his roles seem to have played out. But then I looked into it, and it turns out that his life was not that much, that his life wasn't really that good at all. And I think that's just a reminder that people who look fine and happy, you know, those are the ones that you really need to be careful about. And when people say that, I think it doesn't quite register. The fact that, like, your friend that you might be seeing every day, your relative, your anyone, your teacher, they might be going through something, but they might be looking perfectly fine. And I think that's just a reminder that you really do need to be careful and treat everyone with kindness, and consider that maybe they have more going on than they're letting on. Because when I was going through everything, I think I found the antithesis to the first article that I found. It's about a person that was talking about the movie as it saved their life when they were a child. And I think it also very directly faces the criticism heads on about how this may not be a good movie, there might be a lot of flaws with it, but it's about how that could have meant something so personal and could have saved their life, which I think is worth something, right? I think for a lot of people that put society, it means something to them because it spoke to them, because it told them so much about themselves and it told them how to live life. And I think no matter how many criticisms there are, no matter how many faults there are with this movie, no matter how much of a butchery this is of literature, it can mean something to people, and I think that's what matters in art. Unfortunately, it's not what the author thinks, but what you thought of it. That's really what it comes down to in things like these. These people are leading good lives. They haven't ruined their lives over this movie. No, they lived good lives. That's because the movie said something and it resonated with them at a level that helped them to keep going. Keating wasn't a good teacher. He may not have made people understand how to understand literature on a level that you might require for formally studying literature. But he was a really good man. He treated the children like people. He treated them like people who had somewhat of thinking skills and who had their own desires, and that these desires were valid to have. This is something we have seen that no one else in this movie seems to have done. Everyone just treats them like stupid children who have no idea what they're doing. But this guy, this man, he decides that maybe these children have something in them, that maybe they do have feelings that are valid. And I think that's what becomes really hard for some people to sort of understand, because when we think of children, we always think they're stupid and they don't know what they're doing. That is true. Children are stupid. That is very much true. I agree with that statement. But I do think you need to treat them with some amount of compassion that I think gets lost when you're so hell-bent on trying to prove to them that you are right and they are wrong. I think we need to treat them like people, and that's what Keating did in this movie, and that's why everyone loved him so much. It wasn't because of the dogma or anything. It was literally just because he was nice to them. And if anyone was nice to you, you would also want to be with them. You would love them. That's how it is. Being kind will simply go a long way. Again, you really never know what someone might be going through. Treating each other with respect and compassion is just important. Everyone has dreams, things they want to do, and things that they are worried about, and things that they might be going through. And if the movie validates that for them, then I think that's good enough. Even if it isn't good enough for the critics or the people who are analyzing the movie. That's what it meant to me. That's what this movie was for me. A call to go after what makes me happy and realize that life is indeed worth living, and there's things to do and things to live for. A reminder that reality is often soul-crushing and you need a break. You need to enjoy things as you wish to, and that's fine. There's an argument to be made and you can feel free to do so. But it mattered to me a lot. Now, as you can probably very clearly tell, I did not get to analyze this movie to the depth that I wanted to. There's many arguments here, and I urge you not to walk away from this to find the next dopamine hit on the next video or something, but instead think for yourself a little bit. What did you think? What did you think about everything that I said? What do you think about the movie? Are there any other things that you have in mind that I didn't speak of? Because I know that there's other things that I had in mind that I forgot to speak about because I made this video in a rush. But you gotta think for yourself as well. Because if you love this movie, or even if you hate it, you should probably understand the value of thinking up to some limit. And hey, you have an opportunity. I mean, unless you have better things to do, in which case I don't know why you're on this video to begin with. Go on, write something. Write in your diary, write in the comments of this video, talk to a friend, talk to yourself, talk to whoever you want. Just get your thoughts out there. Think about it a little bit. And yeah, this is awkward. Why am I saying this? Listen, I want to encourage thinking, but I don't know how to do it because I am not Keating. I don't know how to inspire people, okay? Just reflect on everything so far. Maybe go deeper into the topic and see for yourself. If you haven't watched the movie, go watch it. Just let your thoughts out. Think. I don't know. And don't. I mean, sure, whatever. It's your choice. I'm not forcing you to do anything. I'll mention some things I think were insightful and worth checking out related to everything that I've been talking about. There was this interview with the writer of the movie that I think has some good insights into the mindset of the writer and all those things. I think you should really watch the writer talk and go through his interviews and articles and stuff because I think that it is kind of insightful into the process. There's this video which is criticizing the movie. I don't agree with every point made in this video, especially the one where about how this movie has fascist undertones. I don't think so. I think that's looking too much into it, but again, I might be stupid, who fucking knows. But I think the comments of this video are also really good because there's a lot of people who are making counter arguments to what was said in the video, and I think a lot of those comments have some really good defenses for the movie, and I quite like most of them. There's also the original article, obviously, you can always go read that, along with the antithesis argument that I presented later on. Both of these articles are probably the peak of the argument on each side. I quite like both of them. Unfortunately, I don't have as many resources as I would have liked to this time. That's because, again, everything was kind of a mess. I will probably just put everything down in the description later if I find anything else that I found helpful. But that's about it for now. It's been hell making this video. My life in general has been really hard the past few weeks. I'm glad it's finally over because this video was just so much mental effort, and I'm still mad that I couldn't quite condense the chaos that was going through as I tried to make this video and I was going through the articles and stuff. It was hell. I was going mad. I was going insane. It was so exhausting. I'm glad it's over. I had bigger ambitions for this video, but I did wrap it up pretty well. I think I was able to touch on most of the things that I wanted to talk about, and I hope this is going to lead to more people being involved in this discussion. That would be amazing. But now that it's finished, I'm going to forget about this. Not until years later when I'm way smarter and my frontal lobe has completely developed that I'm going to go back into this. I feel a little bit disingenuous. I feel like it's a little bit disingenuous, I don't know how to pronounce that word, that I am kind of like half-assing this video and just putting it out, but again, I will go insane if I try to finish it. I'm sorry about that. I hope this was not too bad to watch. I'm gonna have exams next month, so I might be a little bit busy, so the next few videos might have a little bit of a drop in quality. I'll try, but again, I might be busy, so I'm not sure. I mean, again, this video just took the life out of me, so I might actually need a break after all of that. I don't want to burn out, so I'm gonna take it easy. Something simple, we get it done. Now, originally at the end of the video, I was gonna have the original clip of me talking about the movie right as I had finished watching it, which was about a 20-minute long clip where it was right after I cried over the movie and I wanted to get my thoughts out. And I wanted to like condense it and put it at the end of this video, but as I'm going through it, I'm realizing putting the clip in its entirety with very minor edits to cut out the space, that's what I want to do because so much of it is worth it. It's kind of hard to get through and it's kind of boring, I think, because obviously it's like a 20-minute clip of just me talking, but I think it's a lot of the things I said there, they're just very much insightful, and I'm glad I did that, and I can't reproduce that kind of optimism for the actual making in this video, but I think that matters. I'm going to put that as a separate video. I'm probably going to publish it right after this video or maybe a few days after this video. If it's there, it's going to be linked here in the end screen or in the description, but yeah, that's going to be a very important But that's going to be a companion piece about my pure thoughts of this movie before I realized about the nuances to it. Bye bye.